Elise, I'm going to record. And you allow me to record, right?
You what?
Well, you allow me to record what we're talking about for the class planning.
Yes.
Okay, so we keep on talking about what your third graders, second grader, third grader, fourth grader need to know, and you already prepared a comprehensive lesson plan for this one. We have been talking about this one for the last 3 years. I'm so happy finally this bear fruits, and we are going to use our knowledge to give this one to our students. We'll have a wonderful interaction. Now tell me what you're prepared.
Well, I am preparing to teach some of my classes now. And one of the things that I was working on, all of the core knowledge books have a section for familiar phrases and sayings. I find that they're sayings that are used a lot. And so I just try and help the kids understand what they mean. So right now, my keynote is not exactly how it will be. It'll be a lot more succinct. But for example, if we were to learn action speaks louder than words, then instead of just talking about it, we can also look at pictures and discuss. So for example, actions speak louder than words in this. Wow, it looks heavy. I wish I can help.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
cool.
That's his words, but is his action saying he wants to help? No.
This guy not going to take the heavy burden from the girl, right?
Oh. Yeah, I'll help you, but is he helping? So no, his actions aren't louder than his words, are they? His words are loud, but he's not doing anything. Action proves who someone is. Words prove who they want to be. So we'll talk about the various philosophical meanings of action speaks louder than words. We'll move on. His bark is worse than his bite. We'll have some examples. Again, this is not my finished. This is just a funny thing. His bark is worse than his bite. We'll just go through all of these and discuss why beggars can't be choosers. What does a clean bill of health mean? What is a cold shoulder? What is a feather in your hat? What's a last straw? So we'll just go through these and really get to know them and use more examples. Why a rotten apple really does spoil the whole barrel, and it does have to do with science. Actually, a
wonderful
apple can ruin the barrel as a person can. So we're going to talk about familiar sayings.
I love this one. The show must go on. This one is in this textbook.
Yes.
But nobody prepared so well as you did with all these pictures. I think kids at this age love cartoons.
Well, they do. And it also just helps to understand, like we can talk about here the rabbit saying, well, the rabbit's pulling the man from the hat now. And it says,
oh, the irony, right?
For
the dramatical irony
was to somehow just make this look as if it's all part of the show. So something accidentally happened and now the rabbit's doing it, but the show must go on. So he's continuing. I thought this is a really good phrase. It says, the show must go on is a well-known phrase in show business, meaning that regardless of what happens, the show must still be put on for the waiting patrons. You can't just let the guests in the audience sit there and the show doesn't go on. So if somebody gets sick, something happens, the show must go on. And there was an example of that the other day. There was a play, the lead actress got sick, and they immediately put somebody in. That's the show must go on. You just keep going. So it does. And so that's one of the things we're going to talk about. Another is, excuse me. What do I want to share here? Something I'm working on now is literature composers and their music. So we're going to focus on 1001 Nights, specifically in 1001 Nights, Aladdin and the Wonderful Lamp. But we're going to talk about how the 1001 Nights came to be and what it is. It's just fascinating history. And then we're going to talk about Rimsky-Korsakov because he loved 1001 Nights when he was a child. He used to read that. And his love of 1001 Nights made him create a symphony. So we're going to listen to the symphony, talk about Korsakov, where he came from, and Alan Menken, who has won all kinds of awards, currently alive. This is him here, Alan. So here's his compositions for Aladdin the musical. He wrote A Whole New World. So we're going to listen to that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful.
Compare it to Rimsky-Korsakov's symphony of the same book, 1001 Nights. He did not use Aladdin's wonderful lamp in his symphony. He has 4 different stories, but we're going to talk about that. So we'll talk about what 1001 Nights is, and what this is, one of the manuscripts, just to show how ancient it was. And it came way before then. And this is the lady who supposedly told 1001 Nights to the Sultan so she would not be killed. So we'll talk about how the formation of the one.
I read this, by the way, I read this book probably 1,000 years ago when I was in China, in Chinese.
Yes, and a lot of the history says that it was actually in China that the story of Aladdin took place.
Actually,
but because of the various
a Chinese boy, but then on the sea world, they travel to the Arabians, and also the Sinbad's 7 voyages. It's almost like the Chinese Admiral Zheng He's travel to the Arabian Sea.
Yes.
It's an international masterpiece. It's one of the Harvard masterpiece. It's one of the Harvard masterpiece. So they are going to study this one in the 3rd, 4th grader, but if they study literature, they have to study this one in college too. Oh, you are talking about Taj Mahal too, right?
Just to show how the Middle East was not just, just Persia and just a few countries. It encompassed all of the Eastern world, China, India. We're looking at all the countries were part of the oral tradition. So the stories are from so many countries. These are some of the vocabulary words in the story.
Vocabulary, cool, wonderful.
And some of the phrases.
Sultan, Persia, Kuro, magic lamp.
Just to make sure they know what this means. Received him kindly. That was an odd phrase of words, I thought, for kids. Whisked himself. I want to make sure they know some of these things lurking, These are the characters. We just want to make sure we talk about them and some of the settings that it take place in. This is Alan Menken. We're going to talk about him. We're going to watch some YouTube videos of some of the songs. There's also this, if right here, if I was to Google it, which it won't do right now, but it shows him talking about his love of music and how he got these songs written, and it shows him interacting with the singers. And
by the way, a lot of these people are immigrants from Russia to the New York City, right? And then they built the what? Allen Kington Valley, the tons of music, American music. They built the whole Broadway show. Right? This genius changed.
And he's done other musicals. I was thinking it would be just fun for the kids to realize, no matter what they read, whatever story it is, if it inspires them, they can sit and think about a character in the story and think about, what would they talk about? What would they sing about? What would there be a song about them? Like, you can take what you read into so many directions, not just history, but music as well. Like, this was Rimsky-Korsakov.
By the way, in Houston Symphony last year, I remember in the summertime, I watched this one.
I saw that they had come.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of tie-ins, especially in Houston. You can go see so much. We'll talk about, you know, how Rimsky-Korsakov loved music. We'll watch.
Oh, I need to study more about the composer's life. But this
And
of
these
music,
are
I
the four
love it.
movements
I, Mhm.
from 1001 Nights. Like, these are the stories he took from it: the Sea
Yeah.
and Sad Ship, the Calendar Prince, the Young Prince. So those were his stories. But we'll listen to each movement and then just talk a little bit about how it sounds like that story, how he got the wave movement, maybe through the violins, or how that worked. So we're going to do this, a little bit of this. I'm still working on that.
Wonderful.
And then to show. So another thing that I work on is vocabulary. So for example, with one group of students, now I'm slow. We go over these words
Slowly. I prefer we go through these big words slowly, even though it's all in the textbook. But you know, these public school, these they don't teach these sophisticated words. But in order to understand the story we are teaching, they definitely need to have a firm grasp of the word altruism, egoistic.
So these were actually words I put together from another vocabulary book that had grouped them in personality types. And
wonderful.
That would be so helpful when kids are thinking about in terms of what's that person like, or why is this personality like this? I'm going to teach them what kind of personalities are there. Where's my?
Yeah.
So like an altruist, we'll talk about what that is. And then
who in my class is altruist? Mother Teresa, definitely.
So all of these people, the fireman's being altruistic, this woman giving her umbrella is being altruistic because now she's getting wet. This man saving the dog is getting wet. This woman who is helping her friend in a race. All of these are altruistic. And then we'll have some sentences, and then the kids will write sentences, but very quickly. An ambivert. What is an ambivert? We'll talk about that. We'll talk about an ascetic. You know,
ascetic.
So all of these are just, you know, and then we have examples and sentences. So it kind of helps, but it depends on how many kids are in the class and
the people because
everybody has to have time to talk. I try and make sure all of them talk for each word, and it slows it down the more kids I have. So the more kids, it's better because they can learn from one another, but you focus on fewer words because more people are speaking.
Wonderful.
Right? But if you have one, then you can go over them more quickly, obviously. But not necessarily in a better.
I like this picture. I love this picture.
Right?
I want to do the same thing, but
it's true. Like I like this, an introvert. I'd love to hang out, but I have to go sit in my house by myself.
In order to associate with other people, look inward, shy, quiet person.
Right? And so then in my classes, we've talked about who's an introvert, or who thinks they're an introvert, or who thinks they're an extrovert, because it changes over time. But just a lot of words for that. And then we go into other words, which all have to do with people again. What kind of people are these? What would we call them? I covered up some things so that they couldn't see the answer.
Wonderful, wonderful. You put tons of energy on this.
Right.
You know, I kind of show my
we did a lot on Don Quixote, only because I made them listen to parts of it. I love Don Quixote. So what is the word? You know, chaotic. That was the main thing. But subservient. You know, and then we would at some point use two of the words that we were learning and forced to make a sentence using the two words. So my two words were like earnest and chaotic, and so they had to write just different things. Jovial. But all tying in with people. How can you explain people? How can you describe people?
Good.
Oh,
So
mediums.
with these examples, they are more confident with writing essays. They will be more comfortable with writing essays. Wonderful.
And when they're reading, they retain more knowledge because they know what they're reading a little bit better. If they read about a damp squib, well, what's a damp squib? You know, there's just various things that we will,
Yeah.
the more
If
they
they
learn.
can use all these vocabularies in their essay, middle school essay or high school essay, they are intellectually ready for high school and college.
And enjoy reading,
Enjoy reading.
because once they learn some more words, it makes the reading go by, right? So much quicker.
That's right. Quicker
You
and
don't have to slow down.
enjoy more. They don't have to slow down.
Right.
That's wonderful. All these 69 words are very important to read classical novels. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So later on, definitely I will teach all the classical novels. This one is good personality because novels appreciate literature is all about understand human nature. And you select all the human nature vocabularies is very important for them. All these words, knowledge are actually understand people.
Right. It
How
is.
to understand people.
And just like, we talked about who in the class was reticent to speak out, and talk about how to overcome that. So
Overcome the fear. Okay.
Just different kinds of ways you can be. So that's the kind of thing I like to do. Just teaching knowledge.
Wonderful.
Just teaching what
This look like Marilyn Monroe.
Getting excited about what it is, and get them excited about reading a story and comparing it to their life, or
Arabian Night, if the kids are interested in Arabian Night and all the music, fun art, geography, folk story related to Arabian Night, they have other adventurous, curious personality. They will develop a curious personality. So when I was a kid, I was reading this whole book. I was imagining myself in Russia. I was imagining myself in Arabian countries. Now I end up here. So that will give you the incentive to explore new things, different things.
And the good thing for Houston, like you were saying, you saw the symphony. Aladdin is touring in June. So the kids, after they read it, might want to go see it at Hobby Center.
Hobby Center, I will definitely, this summer I will go there.
And then there's a new movie coming out too. I don't know if I put that.
And maybe, the kids can write a story about alternative ending.
Oh, the movie. Yeah, the movie's coming out May 24th.
Yeah. If the kids can write about, this is the ending of this Aladdin story, how about you write about different ending? What if the king didn't marry her? Things like that.
Right. And one of the areas I was thinking might be interesting to focus on, because he's such a wonderful character in the movie, is the genie.
The genie, yes. How about the genie story? The genie is a fascinating.
Fascinating story, because in the story itself, he is very dry and very serious and very straightforward. There's not much personality to him except for his that's his job, kind of attitude. But in the movie, he becomes Aladdin's best friend, and they become, it's like a buddy movie. And so the person who wrote Aladdin, the movie, decided to shake things up and make Genie a different character altogether. So I thought the same thing. I thought, let's pick a character and make a different character come alive a little bit more. It could be the mom, it could be the genie, it could be anyone in the story. We change who they are from the story and talk about who else they could have been and how that would have changed the story. like the
Wonderful.
genie. The storyline in essence stayed the same, but the genie made the story fun.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
But
This
Robin
wife's
Williams,
book is in the Harvard Classical Literature Collection. 100 must-read books, even for scholars, not to say students, the young kids. Okay, wonderful. This one, you have the wonderful collection.
It's a start. It's a start. I'm building on it right now. This is not my one to teach from yet. It's just the start, but I am excited about it because I love it. I just ordered a new edition of 1001 stories so I could read it now too. I hadn't read it in a while, and there's some hard copies and easy copies. The fourth graders could get it. You know, there's different versions.
Wonderful.
I love it.
Wonderful. So the great thing about this book, all these classical literature, they give you a taster. They give you a flavor. If we can...
Right, I love that. It's a flavor.
It's a flavor. If we can intrigue the kids to read the original book, they are successful scholars. They will become successful scholars. Okay, thank you for sharing this one with me. I do have your allowance to share this one with parents. I hope them to
as long as the parents know that it will be better once I finish it.
That's right. That's right. So I want the parents to look at this and look at the book, and hopefully they will bring their kids to our class. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Bye.